Topic is how to manage a session of cold approach. So what I noticed is after coaching a lot of guys, recently I coached a couple guys in Kuala Lumpur, and obviously during the sessions they're doing good. They're doing a lot of approaches. They're getting a lot of numbers, maybe going on Insta dates here and there, right? Versus when they go out on their own, or even with me when we're not doing like a formal coaching session. What I notice is the biggest thing is basically they'll walk around for a long time and wait for the perfect girl, right? Like, I'm gonna walk around for an hour and then I'm looking for the hottest girl ever, or like the perfect situation, right? And so that's really one of the biggest mistakes that I noticed. And there's some other things that I'll go over, but I figured it'd be useful to kind of have a session about how to manage a session, whether that's day game, night game, street game, whatever, right? So it's sort of like a how to go out and actually do this, right? All right, so the first thing that I think is really important is time blocking, setting goals of approaches, right? So say you're going to go out, say today is Thursday, right? You're going to go out today. Say, for example, I'm actually going to go out after this webinar in a couple hours, right? I'm going to go out. I might stay, I'll say like, okay, I'm going to go out from 2 to 4, for example, right? And then I'm going to set a goal of like, let's just say 10 approaches, right? So it's just like the gym, right? You're going to set a time. You're going to set a goal. And, if you just go to the gym for 2 hours and you just do 5 reps, can you really expect any results? No, right? Or if you go to the gym for, 20 minutes, you're not really going to get much progress, right? So set at least a couple hours and have like actual goals of how many approaches you're going to do, how many sets you're going to do, right? Later on, if you're getting a little better, more towards like an intermediate or advanced level, you don't really need to set the amount of approaches per se. You might do a few approaches and get a pull. You might, you might have different goals, but I would say initially, or even if you're like getting back in the game, you're rusty, it's really good to have a actual amount of approaches, right? So those are the two really basic, these are kind of like fundamental things, right? And here's a big thing that I really wanted to say, because after going out with a lot of guys think that they can skip the warm up. So what I would like to make an analogy about is, let's think about sports. So treating the game like sports is probably the best analogy I can give. If you don't watch sports, you might not understand. So sorry about that, but I'll try to use a few. Like, okay, for example, basketball, you have Steph Curry, right? He's the greatest shooter of all time, one of the best basketball players of all time, 4 championships, considered the greatest pure shooter of all time, right? Makes most of his shots. However, I've seen him play before. Before the game, he's warming up. He's not just shooting like super deep 3 points, right? Before the game starts, he's actually taking free throws, really simple shots, right? He's even missing some simple shots. So what I would like to say is, for most guys where they're walking around wasting a bunch of time, or looking for, I'm only going to approach the hottest girl, right? What they end up doing is they don't approach for an hour. They walk around, they never warm up. And then even if after an hour they see that super hot, 8.5 girl, or, model or whatever, what happens is they're so, they have no warm up, right? So they're like frozen, and then they go approach the girl and it's like the words are not coming out, and, oh, I don't know what to say. Oh, I forgot what to say. Oh, I don't know, I just blanked out. And the reason is because they didn't warm up. So it'd be like Steph Curry not doing, before basketball games, they have a shoot around, right? So they kind of, take simple shots, pass, they do a little practice, a little warm up. So that's what you should be doing in the beginning session, right? When you're walking around, or even if you're at a bar. Let's even use bar analogies here too, right? If you just walk in and you're like standing at the bar with your drink, and then waiting. Okay, I'm just going to wait for the hottest girl to walk in and then go approach her. If she does walk in, you're going to be sort of like stuck in your head, standing there. Yeah, hey, I want to meet you. And she's like, I gotta go. So even if you're in a bar, you want to get going quick, right? So to use an analogy for a bar, if you're going to warm up, even right when you enter the bar, like the first girl you see, you don't have to be attracted to her. She can be average. Oh, hey, what drink is that? I always say something like, I go to a new bar, I go to a bar I've been to 100 times, doesn't matter. They have a cocktail, they have a whatever it is, some kind of drink or whatever they're doing. I'll say, oh, what? This is my first time here, actually. What drink is that? Oh, okay, okay, cool, cool, cool. I'll go. I'll try that out. And then that's just to get the ball warming, get the ball rolling, right? Get warmed up a bit, right? And so it's very important to have a little bit of warm up, right? Like in terms of the street, what I usually do when I'm walking outside, starting a session, the first girl who's at least cute, you don't have to, she doesn't have to be super hot, but you just look at her, oh, she's pretty cute. if you have that thought in your mind, you look back at her, just go approach, make a comment, do an opener, no expectations, just assume, oh, I'm just warming up, not a big deal. And then, okay, cool, got the first one out of the way. It's much easier after the second one, the third one, the fourth one, versus walking around looking for the perfect girl, perfect situation. You're going to freeze up, right? Another analogy I like to use for the session is a boxing analogy. So a way to view it, if you're going to go out for 2-3 hours and do this, whether it's in a bar, club, or the street, you want to look at the big picture, right? So in boxing, anybody watch boxing, anybody watch UFC, most of the time, there are exceptions, but most of the time, the first couple rounds are a bit warming up. They're feeling each other out, seeing where his range is, where's the guy's range, how do I block, kind of get a little bit of a warm up going. And then they start going a little heavier on the third and fourth round. And then maybe somebody gets a knockout, sometimes, if you're Mike Tyson back in the day, first round, but most of the time people were getting knockouts 6, 7, 8, ninth round, right? And so that's how I kind of want you to view it. Or they go to the scorecards, round 12, and they win on points, basically, right? So if you view your session kind of like that, like, okay, first couple rounds, first few sets are just warmed up, and I'm kind of rusty, forgot what to say, forgot how to comment on her, forgot to share my story, forgot to, vibe, teaser, make it fun, share some stories, right? Then, by the third round, you're actually warmed up a bit. You're actually, landing some shots would be like getting some numbers or having some good sets or whatever, right? And then maybe later on down the line, you can go for an Insta date, an Insta pull for drinks, pull her out of the bar, pull her from the street to a venue or to your place. Yeah, so that would be kind of like the TKO in this analogy, right? Or maybe you just go out for a few hours, you do a bunch of approaches, you end the day on like, okay, early on, even for me, this happens all the time. I'll go out and I'll get a few blowouts in a row. And then, okay, I'm warmed up to the fourth one. Maybe like the sixth, seventh, eighth start going good. Pull on like the 10th set. Or maybe no pulls. Maybe I do like 20 approaches. Some of them go well, some don't. I walk home with 6, 7 phone numbers. I have a date set for tomorrow. So it's kind of like winning on points in this boxing analogy, right? And so if you view this as sort of the bigger picture rather than I'm waiting for the perfect chick or, the perfect situation, when you have a bigger picture view, it changes the whole game, right? When you're viewing it like, oh, I have to find the perfect girl, the hottest girl, and just do that to start, that's kind of like a boxer going into the ring and saying, oh, I just need to do one shot and knock him out. It's not a very effective approach. You're just going to waste time. You're not going to score any points, and you're probably going to get knocked out at the end of the day because you're just waiting for one punch, right? So thought that was a pretty good analogy. Yeah, in terms of also in terms of like, okay, another sports analogy I'll give you is some days the best boxers, whether that's Mike Tyson in his prime, Steph Curry as a basketball player, Michael Jordan, they even have off days. Tiger Woods in golf, whatever you watch. There will be some days where they start out kind of rusty, right? So everybody will have days where they start out a little bit more rusty. And then everybody will also have days where maybe you do 1, 2, 3 approaches and they all go well in a row. Sometimes you just start kind of like warmed up already, right? So know that it'll like ebb and flow. Some days you'll be warm from the beginning, cold in the beginning. So you can't really put yourself above the process, right? That makes sense, right? Okay, so even Steph Curry, even who is a boxer, Mike Tyson, a recent guy, let's see, I don't know, Canelo Alvarez or something like that, right? Even he warms up before the match, right? Okay, so another important thing I think is that a lot of guys will do 5, 10 approaches and then call it a day, right? They'll say, okay, I did enough. That's a day. And if you're really busy, that's understandable. You have a lot of work, a lot of obligations. Okay, cool. But for most guys, you can do a lot more than that, right? So if you do 5 or 10, instead of going home, what you should do is go to a cafe. If you're in a bar, say you do 5 or 10 approaches, very easy. Maybe go take a break, go get a bite to eat, go outside, take a walk, and then hit another bar, right? Take a little break, talk to your friend, talk to your wing, shoot the shit, have funny stories, unrelated to game, right? Other stories about whatever is going on, and then go to a different bar, do different approaches, right? So taking these breaks are very good because instead of calling it an early day, take a break, you kind of relax, refresh, have a coffee, talk to your friend, whatever, and then you go out again, right? The other thing is I noticed a lot of guys, they'll get very flustered. So they'll do a bunch of approaches. Maybe they go bad. Maybe they do like, most common mistake would be this. They do like 5, 6 approaches, no numbers, maybe only one girl's kind of responsive, but no number. And then they're like, oh, I suck. I'm garbage. Uh, I feel flustered. I feel nervous. I feel like garbage. I'm just going to call it a day, which is a very bad approach because you're still kind of, it could be also you're just warming up. Could be also that you're picking sets that the girl's super busy. She's meeting her boyfriend. She's in a rush. She's in a bad mood. So at that point, maybe go to a coffee shop, take a break, watch a funny video, call your friend, do some meditation, breathe, relax, realize it's not a big deal, go back out again in 20, 30 minutes, kind of like a halftime, right? So again, to bring the sports again, say the Golden State Warriors are playing the Boston Celtics, right? They're getting beat by 20 points. They go to the halftime, right? They have the little breaks in between, right? They go to halftime, they relax, they refresh, have some Gatorade, right? They go back out, and then maybe Steph Curry hits like 3 threes in a row. Now the game's tied, and then they win the game at the end, right? So if he just said, oh, I'm going to go home at halftime, they wouldn't have won the game, right? So looking at it in that kind of way is very good, right? And the same thing in a bar. Like I've had many experiences in night game where it's like I go to one bar and just blown out, maybe one number, maybe 0. And then I just flip to a different bar in the same place and I do good. Or I just go to the street, don't even go to a bar, just go to the street and then get like a pull or like, a number that meets the next day, right? So it's important to, instead of just calling it a day when you have the time, to actually make these little breaks, kind of like halftime. I call it kind of like taking a halftime in sports, right? So that can be very, very useful. Also, of course, praying mantis game. If you're at a cafe, if you're at a bar, finding places where you can kind of sit outside and just relax and then see girls walk by. That way you can just kind of, you're not building yourself up. You're not like over, oh, where's the next girl? Where's the next girl? You can actually sit down and relax and then just kind of choose, one girl that you like. Can be very useful. Okay, so I think I did go over a lot of the common mistakes in session. So I said guys are not warming up. They're not viewing the big picture, meaning they're not like, they're not viewing it as more of a sports game kind of, right? The analogy of like taking half times, warming up, increasing your volume. What else? Oh, another thing. Okay. Another thing is, another common mistake I'll see is guys will warm up. So this is kind of on the back end, like the second half. They'll warm up, they'll get some numbers, they'll be doing well now, okay? They're on the opposite end, like instead of doing shitty, walking around forever, wasting time, now they're doing good, the sets are going well, they're getting numbers, and then they'll actually be the guy who, and they're free that day, right? Whether it's day or night, they'll be the guy who settles for only getting the number when this girl, there'll be a girl right here, right now, smiling, playing with her hair, her eyes are dilated, the set's going well, and he'll just say, oh yeah, we should meet up next time. Let's do Kakao Talk or WhatsApp or whatever they're using. So what happens is you get almost complacent, like, oh, I don't really want to lose this. I just want to get the number. So you settle for numbers rather than actually, the girl's free, she's into it. You become afraid to like push it to the next level, right? You should be bouncing her for a drink, a coffee, whatever it is. Bounce her somewhere else, maybe back to your place, right? So another common issue is like leveling yourself at, I'm just the numbers guy, or I don't really want to lose this good attention, right? Another big thing I noticed too is that once you get a little bit good, you get good reactions, you get a lot of attention, and then you don't want to lose that attention, right? Like, oh, hey, like if you feel like if you move it forward, you're going to lose the good feelings that you have, right? So that's another major issue. The warming up, being afraid to move it forward, not seeing the big picture, right? I could share many stories about this where I'll go out at day, I'll go out at the night, and it's like the first 20 sets went nowhere. Maybe a few blowouts and then a few longer conversations, but they had a boyfriend or some other situation. And then maybe one number after like 10, 20 sets, right? And then like the 19th set, let's just say that, for example, is like the one you pull home and end up closing that day. So really seeing that full picture is very important, right? Okay. See if some other common mistakes. Some other common mistakes. Okay, this is another really big one I noticed, is that you will notice that guys will see a girl from very far away. She's not really my type, or they'll be looking at her. I noticed this when I go out with other guys. They'll look at that girl. Oh, not my type. Really? You have to actually go and check on it, right? So give the analogy of like you're out, you have to kind of like flip the rock. I think somebody told me this once. Under the rock, there could be a, you know, a frog, an ugly frog, or like a golden nugget of money, right? So unless you go and actually check, if you see a girl that actually looks hot, but you're not sure because it's a little far, maybe you see the back is good. Who knows about the front, right? In that situation, simply just go as quick as you can, go check. It could be good. And then you open. If it's really bad, okay, cool. You know, you didn't open, but you checked. So that's another thing is like, oh, she's too far away, or I don't really, she's not my type, but they didn't really go in and verify it, right? So I would say that's another big common mistake. All right, let's see. I think I covered the basics of what I wanted to talk about, but is there any questions, any concerns, current issues? Not as many people this time. Last time I had like 12 people because it was at night. Today, not so many people joined. So uh, still working hours. So if there's any questions, concerns, current issues, how to deal with any current or any situation, or related to this topic or not, doesn't matter. Maybe not. I can just talk more shit, I guess. Or you can type in the chat room. Let's see if anybody posted any questions too. Hold on 1 second.
Hello?
Oh, yeah.
When a girl goes into a shop,
Yeah.
yeah, any solution?
Okay. So you asked, what do you do when a girl goes into a shop, right? Okay. Yeah. So that's another funny one. I'm actually really glad that you brought that up. I should have remembered that in like the common mistakes that I was just talking about. That is actually a really funny one. So I'll be out with a lot of guys. This is super common, actually. Guys will actually get decent level at doing street approaches or this or that kind of approach. And then they act like when a girl walks into a store, let's say a Daiso, let's say a clothing shop, coffee shop, they act like she died, like she fell off the face of the earth. And, you know, or like if I walk in the shop, like fire is going to hit me and I'm going to melt or something. So it's the same thing. When the girl walks into a shop, it's all in your head. You're thinking, oh, I can't do it. I can't go in there. The only exception I would really give, there's like two exceptions I'd say not don't do it, or maybe three. Okay. One is the female bathroom, because you'll probably get, you know, in trouble. It's not socially aware. Another one would be something like a bank line. I wouldn't really do because you can probably kind of looks like you're trying to scam them or like it looks threatening financially, right? So obviously those two, I mean, I think those are just common sense, honestly. Trying to think of a third one. Third one that I personally don't do is like if they're walking into like a female panty store or something like a Victoria's Secret. I just don't typically do that. Comes off a bit gross or something, in my opinion, but you can do it if you want. But yeah, if she goes into any kind of other shop, which are 99.9% of the places she'll be going in, you just follow her in the shop and then approach in that store, right? So if it's a Daiso, if it's a clothing store, there's always a reason to be in any of these places for yourself anyways, right? You're looking for a shirt, you're looking for whatever, some face wash, right? So you just follow her in and then do your approach there. It's really all in your head, right? Like, yeah, it's the same thing as doing it in the street, honestly. There's no difference really, other than in many ways it can be easier because she's stationary, she's standing, she's looking at a, you know, whatever, some kind of drink, looking at a shirt. You can just comment on something that she's looking at, something in the store, something about her. Yeah, so there's no difference at all. Yeah. Um, any other questions? Let's well,
But parking lot is okay.
a common mistake is some guys only game at one venue every time, no social awareness. Yeah. So some guys only do the same. Somebody said a common mistake is some guys only game at one venue every time, no social awareness. Yeah, that's true. That's true. What's the same thing? Okay, some guys only ever go to bars. Some guys only ever go to club, like the same bar, the same club, the same area. Some guys only ever do street. But it's funny with the street. Street is good because you can do it day and night and do it anywhere pretty much. But there's other like what do you call that? What's the term for that? Situate, so they get confident in doing a street approach, but then they lack the confidence in, oh, she's in the store, so I don't know how to do that now, or she's, you know, waiting for a bus, so I can't do that. So they create all these limiting, she has to be walking on the street, but I can't do it in any other situation. So the more you just keep doing those, like one thing you could do is set a goal like, okay, I'm gonna approach, you know, every day I'll approach 3 girls in a shop or something like that, right? And then it just becomes easy. It becomes normal. I do it every day. It's a normal thing, right? Or 2 girls waiting for a bus every day or something like that, right? So then you just become comfortable with it. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Another thing I could also bring up is going out with wings, whether that's day or night, right? I think it is good to go out alone just to get the experience of like being able to do this anytime, anywhere on your own, but it's also good to go out with another guy. You can kind of push each other, right? Like he does one approach, you do one approach, and you can learn a lot just from watching his style. You watch his style, he watches your style. You can give feedback. You can, if you're not giving feedback, you can at least kind of learn maybe a different way that he did something or a different style he's doing, right? So that can be very useful. It can also be motivating, right? Like if you have a wing who takes a lot of action, can motivate you to take more action. So that can be very good. Also, what's good is you're socializing, like you're talking with him while you're walking. Like yesterday, I went out with a couple of guys from the group. We're walking, we're talking about different shit, sports, basketball. That's kind of why I had these basketball analogies. One of the guys likes basketball a lot. We're talking about basketball, laughing, joking, and then, oh, I'm gonna go do approach, right? So you're kind of already in a social mood, and then you do approaches. Same with going to a bar. If you're alone, drinking, that can be okay, or you're alone on the street, it can be okay. But if you're with another guy chatting, laughing, and then you approach, you're already kind of in a good social mood, right? But it shouldn't be a crutch. You should always be able to do it on your own. So mix it up, right? Okay. Any other questions? Maybe related to anything? Any topic related to approaching, whatever, running your sessions, anything like that?
How do you deal with a girl wearing mask?
Okay. Yeah, I haven't had that question in a long time. Girls wearing masks. So for me personally, there's a couple ways. There's a couple ways to do it. One way is if she just looks good, I'll just approach even if she's wearing a mask. If she looks good, I can tell by her figure, um, whatever it is. I can tell by her figure, her fashion, her eyes, her whatever that is, right? So I'll approach this as if she wasn't wearing a mask. It doesn't matter. One thing I like to do is like I'll say I'll say something like, "Oh, you have really nice eyes, but hey, quit hiding. You gotta take your mask. I gotta see what your whole face looks like." I'll make a little joke, kind of do a playful tease, and then see if she can take off her mask, right? May even make a joke about it, like, "Oh, you got a mask? Hey, I thought Corona finished already." Make a little playful tease about it. Or say you're outside approaching her, like, "Hey, you don't need a mask outside. There's fresh air here. You're totally fine." Just like try to like gesture them to take off their mask. A lot of times they will. A lot of times they will, and then you can kind of see their, whole package, so to speak, right? If they won't take off their mask, you can add them on Instagram or something like that, right? Then you can at least get a feel for what they look like without their mask, right? So that's another approach. Um, yeah, I don't really honestly notice a big difference between girls wearing masks and not. A lot of girls traditionally in Korea that are super hot will be wearing masks just to kind of hide during the day. So you just kind of get used to approaching girls with masks, yeah. And like I said, when I joke and kind of like gesture to take off the mask and make a joke about it, I would say the majority, like 3 out of 4, 3 out of 5, maybe something like that, take it off. So it actually can be effective, yeah. Sometimes they're wearing it too because they didn't do makeup. They're like shy, or sometimes they won't take it off just because they're shy too. So yeah. All right. Yeah, I notice a lot of guys. Okay, that's another good question actually. A lot of guys just don't do it. They think that if a girl's wearing a mask, they can't do it or something, or they're like averse to it, even though like you can tell she's hot. She's maybe tall, big boobs, long legs, good figure, and they just, oh, she has a mask, so I can't do it. Just kind of silly, but yeah. Yeah, okay. Any other questions? Yay or nay? Maybe I'll stay one more minute. Okay, yeah.
Just to begin to get into 2 sets and 3 sets, any tips how to start doing that?
hmm Yeah, sure. So doing 2 and 3 sets during the day. So if you're doing night game, it's mostly going to be 2 and 3 sets, right? Like if you do, that's why it is good to mix it up. So if you've never done a lot of night approaches, it's good to mix it up because you have to do 2 and 3 sets. Like you're not really going to be able to do many approaches in a night district or like a bar or a club without doing 2 and 3 sets, right? If you're a day game guy and you're probably mostly doing single sets, which is true, but it is good to mix it up, do some 2 and 3 sets because you're going to see girls you're into who are with their friend. Any tips to start? I would say one tip is to approach them as a group. So instead of thinking like, kind of talk to the group all at once, right? So if it's 2 girls or 3 girls, um, say they're wearing their Samsung badges or something like that. Like, oh, this must be the cafe where all the Samsung workers come. This is the place where you guys escape from the office, hide out from EJ Young, that crazy CEO you guys have, right? So you can kind of, approach both of them, make a comment about both of them, and then kind of hone in and flirt more with the one you're into. The problem is if you just super go into the one you're into a lot of times off the open, the friend will kind of pull her away or like, you know, cock block, as they say, right? So it's good to kind of have a little bit of a group dynamic and then float over. You can also try to be, sometimes I'm just lazy and I like to be polarizing. So I'll just only go for the girl that I'm into, right? And then sometimes if you're lucky, the friend will just kind of peel off herself, right? So that'll work sometimes, but generally speaking, you're gonna have to bring the friend in. So it's useful to try to like see the 2 girls as one, if that makes any sense, right? And then yeah, so make a comment that's relevant to both of them, kind of bring them both into the conversation, but then sort of compliment or tease more the one that you're into and keep it more platonic with the one that you're not into, right? So yeah, that'd be my tip. Um, if it's sort of like a very low key, casual, quick approach, uh, sometimes you can be a little bit like if they're both in a rush, for example, running to the office, then I'll be a little bit more polarizing, like direct to the girl. Say I know you guys are running right in the office here. You guys are in a big rush. I'll try to be a little bit more direct in those situations and just go for that one single girl. But yeah, I would say that's a pretty good tip. And again, kind of like with the other things of like approaching in shops, approaching in different scenarios, do a bunch of challenges. Like, okay, I got to do 5 2 sets today, or 5 girls that are walking into a shop or something like that. And then you just get used to it over time, right? Yeah. All right. Any other last questions?
In an average hour, how many, just to be self-accountable, how many sets should be going for per hour?
Oh, okay, that's another good question. You're actually asking pretty good questions. Okay. Um, it really depends. Okay. So if you're starting out, I would say, okay, if you're a beginner and you're starting out, or doesn't really matter, you're getting back in. How many sets per hour? I would say at least, I would say let's just set a minimal because you can do more than this depending on how they go. A minimal amount of like 5 to 10 an hour. I would say if you're doing at least one every 10 minutes, that's not so bad. So let's say an hour goes by, you did 6. Okay, that's not so bad. You can still be doing more. Okay. But yeah, that's not so bad. Well, a problem is you could be in like a dead area, a dead time. So that's why I would say like 6, 7, 6 per hour is okay. If you're in a more poppin' area, a busy area, if it's Friday night in a nightlife area, or if it's Wednesday at 6 p.m. rush hour traffic, right, where just tons of girls are out walking around, you should be doing a lot more than that. So it should be more like 10 per hour, 10 to 20 per hour. But if it's a low traffic time, maybe 5, 6 per hour, yeah. So that being said, if you're doing 2 hour session, you're not doing 2 hour session, you don't do 10 approaches. That's basically you're wasting a lot of time. You should at least be getting 10 approaches per 2 hours. And if it's a higher traffic time, a lot more. Then again, of course, like I said, there's exceptions. Maybe you do 2 approaches, you pull one, or you do 3 and you're on an insta date, so you don't really have to think about it like that. But if you're just doing pure approaches, yeah, at least at least 10 per couple hours. Busier times, maybe double that. So 30 to 40 per 2 hours. Yeah. All right. Another thing, I think I wrote this in my ebook too. It's like you can make challenges. So you have to approach every 2 minutes, like set an alarm on your phone. So you'll realize you're walking around wasting a lot of time. whenever the alarm goes off after 2 minutes, you have to say hello to somebody, right? So that can help keep you accountable, keep the momentum going and things like that.
Let's say you have a good interaction and it goes for like 10 minutes, and then I find that my social battery is drained and I'm exhausted. Is that really what's going on? Or am I just being a pussy?
Can you say that again? Say that one more time.
So after a 10-minute interaction, I'm really like tired and I need to like have a 20-minute break. Is that because my social battery needs to be recharged, or is that just me being lazy or something like that?
I don't know, honestly. It depends on the person. So for some people, if are you an extreme introvert overall?
Uh, yes.
Okay, okay, you're an extreme introvert. Then I would say if you're an extreme introvert, yeah, yeah, yeah. So for extreme introverts, doing like 5 approaches or doing like one very long set can tire them out. I would say, yeah, it's not bad at that point. So remember I went back earlier, I talked about kind of like halftime or whatever, right? Or like timeouts. Like in sports, they have like the first quarter ended or after 5 minutes they take a timeout. I think timeouts are good actually, as long as you keep going, right? As long as you keep going, don't call it a day. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. I would say it's okay to take a like a short break for tea or coffee or whatever. You did a long set or you did 5 approaches. Okay, cool. I'm gonna take a break and then do another 5. That's not bad at all. It's a good approach. It's much better than what most people do. And they instead of taking breaks, they just go home, right? That's what I found that most people do. So that's less ideal, right? Um, Another thing is you know yourself better than I would. So you could also be using this as an excuse, like, okay, I did one approach, I want to take a break. It could also be complacency. So you really have to check your own self on that. If you're actually tired, then take a break. If you're just using it as an excuse, like you said, being a pussy, then you should recognize that and just keep going for a little bit longer. Personally, like I only like to take breaks after a certain amount. So it's kind of like the gym or a sport, right? So it's sort of like I did 10 approaches or something like that. Okay, cool, break time, right? Versus like, oh, I feel like taking a break. Like set a goal first and then like earn your break time, right? It's sort of like earning the halftime, earning the break time. I put in the work, now I deserve, now the coffee tastes better, the tea tastes, I earn the coffee, I earn the tea, right? If that makes sense, right? Versus just taking a break every 5 minutes or something like that, right? Being soft about it. So yeah, so I think it's a balance, right? You don't want to be too hard on yourself, but then you don't want to be too soft on yourself, right? You got to find that balance. Another common issue is like if you're doing night game, guys will take too many. I used to do this too a lot, like take too many beer breaks, right? Like, okay, do a couple approaches, I'm gonna order another drink. I did one approach, okay, another drink, and then you just end up, toasted after that. So it's better to even in night game, like if you're drinking, it's better to I like to drink maybe just one drink and then really only get myself a drink if I'm going to be drinking with a girl after that, rather than just like keep downing drinks and taking breaks, right? So, yeah, that's another way to look at it. Like I earned this beer because I bounced a girl, from the street to some beer shop, or I bounced her away from her friends upstairs to play darts or whatever, so I'm going to get a drink. Kind of like I earned it, right?